Hello, I'm Kat Curry-Williams.
And I'm Robin Radin.
And this is Wine, Women, and Chocolate.
And today we are so excited to have Kathryn Hall here with us today. Kathryn, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, hi. Thank you so much for having me.
And you're joining us today from Dallas, right?
I am in Dallas right now. Yeah.
Well, we are the lucky holders of this fabulous wine that I can't wait to pour into my glass. So we should have wine in our glass because it only makes sense.
Totally.
Okay.
An empty wine glass sort of breaks my heart.
There.
I forgot we're just tasting because...
you just poured a very large glass.
Robin. Okay, you'll be lifting us off the table at the end, but...
Let's just start with a little bit about you so we can tell all of our listeners and our viewers just exactly who you are, Kathryn. And you have an amazing story. So can we just start out with you and your life growing up? You grew up in Berkeley, near Berkeley?
I did.
Okay.
Yes. Well, I come from Berkeley, and I went to school, undergraduate, business school, law school. I'm very much a Berkeley person, and then graduated from law school. Then started practicing law, and then it took me a very long time, but I finally got back to what I consider to be my roots, which is the wine business. My father was in the business many years ago. And so then I got back there and started our winery, which has grown really more than I thought it would. And as it grew, it seemed to me I needed to know something more about business than I did. So that's when I went back to graduate school and got my MBA. So,
okay, so let's go back to law school because first of all, what kind of law did you practice?
I practiced all sorts of law. You know, in those days, not many firms wanted to hire a woman.
Yeah.
In my law school, I think we had 1,000 people in my law school altogether, and there were 20 women in the whole school.
Wow.
Students. I mean, how times have changed, because today 50% of law students are women. But anyway, back then
but
it
they're
wasn't
just
so.
they're women, but they're not in practice because the percentage of just recently, I looked at the percentages. I'm like, it's still too low for women, even though they're in the school. But it's hard. It's a hard climb. I mean,
Well, and my guess is the salaries aren't at parity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, with men too, but still, I love practicing law, and I did. Robin, you say I practiced everything: poverty law, bond law, standard contracts representing businesses. I did lobbying. I did a whole array of various practices, each of which were very interesting at the time, but really nothing spoke to my heart like
wine.
Say wine. say wine, please. Say wine.
So really like the wine business. I mean, and it's about the wine, but it's also just about it's a really fascinating business because it's just got everything. It's got marketing. It's got all the things about a business, you know, inventory control and planning.
The culture you grew up in, because your dad and I'm going off script. Okay.
Go off script.
She can, but the culture you grew up in, with having your family in the wine business, and of course, I'm sure they were very. It was a great thing that you went to study law. I don't think anybody would say, "Oh, stay home and be with wine." I'm sure they were very proud of you to do that. But the culture you lived around. How was that as a kid and as a young adult? And of course, you know, now we all know and love wine. But growing up, wow.
Well, you know, I remember my dad used to go to these meetings called the Grange. At the Grange, it's a very old-fashioned thing. You can still find them around in country areas, but it's where farmers get together. And I think a cynic would say they get together and set prices, but I think it's much broader than that. It's a social setting for farmers to sort of get together and talk about various aspects of their business and their lives. And my dad would take me to the Grange meetings, and there would be, everybody who was there was an old white guy, and as was my dad. And there were sometimes a few sons that were brought in, but absolutely never any daughters. So I just, I really credit my dad for always being very insistent to me about, there are no doors, and there's not really, the gender discrimination is really in your mind,
And what did your friends think about it? What were your high school year friends going like? Your parents, your dad, he's making wine. What's? I want to meet your dad.
I think they, it's, you sort of live in different worlds, and I think we all live in different worlds now. So there was my world that was very sort of normal, where the most important thing in my life was whether Clyde, whatever his name is, was going to ask me out to a dance on the weekend. And then there was another world that was sort of about wine and business and things that I probably was more, I know I was more interested in than my friends were. But
yeah, well, wine and business wasn't what I was thinking when I when I was drinking wine. When I knew about wine, it was the time when Blue Nun was the first thing that do you know that it was?
Of course, Blue Nun, and then there was Lancers.
Yes, that's right.
And there was another one.
Boone's Farm was not a good one, because when my sister's friends would come over, I'm the youngest of four, and my sister that's a little bit older than me would have her friends come over from school, high school, and I wasn't there yet, and they would drink Boone's Farm. And I'd be like, I'm telling mommy. And, and they would all be like really drunk. And it was red wine that they drank too much of. So wine for me at that age was like, it was catastrophic trouble that was going to happen, And then when I met the Blue Nun, I was like, oh, this is white wine. Even if you spill it, it won't be so bad. And tastes pretty good. And then I started from there.
It's a little sweet.
Oh, yes, too sweet. It's way sweet. But of course, when you start at, say 18, 16.
But were you drinking wine with your family when you were growing up?
Always. There was never an occasion that we didn't have wine. And at the very beginning, when you're really a little kid, we called it children's wine, and they would put a little red wine in a glass and then fill it up with water and sugar.
Oh.
Because you would like it, right? Because you didn't like it if it wasn't sweet.
Yeah.
That's why at certain, for us, for gatherings, we celebrated all the holidays, and I would say Christmas and Passover and Hanukkah. So we had Manischewitz. Well, I'm from an Irish Jewish family, so I had either beer or Manischewitz, like as a young child.
My God.
So,
that's a story.
That's not considered in any one of these categories. We don't call that wine.
No.
Or was that candy?
It was, Manischewitz had such a small alcohol content that I think an entire bottle it would take to even give you like a little alcohol buzz. You would get a sugar buzz.
You would get a sugar. It's like that's why they gave you only a little glass of it. But you pivoted. You changed your direction from graduating law and practicing law. That's a big deal as a woman to practice. Once we're in something and
then to pivot that.
Right, especially in a man's world. And I'm going to pivot to another man's world. Hey, talk about someone with courage. I would say
what made
have
you
heaps of
decide
that.
to do that?
I think I really have no idea, other than it was something I wanted to do.
See, we
And
talk about that.
I think that it's like I think sort of life gives you these windows at all of and today even in my life, I mean, it's just like over the course of years, you get these windows and you either jump through them or you don't. And if you don't, you can really miss out on a lot. So I don't know. I think I'm not that afraid of failing.
Well, here, I always have to have a cheers to that.
Yes.
So regardless, but we will be tasting. But I want to say cheers, because this is what we like to do, to not being afraid of failing, because it's only up from there. It's the constant of success. What is the secret to success? Failing, because you have to go and continue. So,
And that is really good Pinot.
so good.
It's really true.
I took a few sips before as you ladies were talking, because I'm like, go ahead, carry on. It's very, so as we're saying this is now I like to skip all the way around. This is
So this
Walt.
is, the Walt 2020 Pinot Noir Blue Jay from the Anderson Valley. What can you tell us about this besides what it says on the label?
So it's a Pinot Noir to begin with, which is really, it's a beautiful wine that tends to be lighter than Cabernet, about equally light to a Zinfandel. Has a little higher acid in general, which means it's a wonderful wine to pair with food, because I think if you have a little acidity in a wine, it makes it great with pairings. And about this wine in particular, I'd say that it's got a lot of sort of depth of flavor. It comes from the Anderson Valley, which is in Sonoma, which is the coolest Pinot Noir growing area in California.
And is it a rainy area? Does it need more moisture for your Pinot?
Yes, always. I always say that Pinot Noir grapes live where I don't want to. And they're always like, it's sort of, they love foggy, cold, damp, sort of wet areas that are always a little cold, and it's always, sort of a little uncomfortable. But the reason Pinot Noir grapes likes that kind of, you can grow a grape anywhere, but why Pinot Noir sort of flourishes in this is because it's a very delicate grape. And if you can give it all, you have to give it all sorts of support as you're making it along the way. I mean, it's really, so you've got to have the perfect climate, the perfect soil, everything has to make it very easy. And then if you do everything right, sometimes you fail, but sometimes you win. And if you win, you get this really sort of burst of flavor in the mouth. And I think that this Pinot in particular has a lot of sort of just when I think of visually of sort of a vertical depth of flavor, just a lot of flavor for not much weight.
I especially like it. It has exact good acidity that you're talking about. And with Pinots, for me, I don't typically like to order them directly off the menu unless I know them, because they can go from very peppery to very flavorless. And this,
totally.
Right? Is that the and this is such the sweet spot of the amount of depth that won't overpower a food, and it will, and also yummy, and it's so I don't have
and the right finish.
There you go.
It does.
I love when I remember that word.
Nice.
Yes, it does. It does have a nice finish to it, because it's complete. It's not supposed to linger. You have your next bite, and then you have your wine, and
it lingers nicely.
Yes.
I need to ask you though, because I read that you were the U.S. ambassador to Austria. How does that even happen?
Yeah. It's very lucky and being in the right place at the right time, and a lot of work. I mean, I told you, as a lawyer, I used to be a lobbyist where I would lobby for businesses, and I've always sort of been on the fringe of politics all my life, and I've run for office before, lost each time, but when I thought, I think I could be an ambassador, I didn't know exactly what they did.
Yeah,
but
I want to know that. That's my next question. What does the ambassador do?
Well, it's sort of like you are the executive in country. Whatever. I was in Austria, so I sort of my group of people. I had about 1,000. I had about 500 people working for me there, and so we 500 performed basically all the functions that the U.S. government does at home. Only we did them in the sense that how we act overseas. For example, our Commerce Department was the Foreign Commercial Services Department. So my chief officer in Commerce was a Commerce Department employee, but he was trained to work in a foreign environment. And what he and his team did was negotiate with businesses, with the government of Austria or other areas in Europe where we were working to facilitate American businesses to do business abroad.
Well, it's a very serious,
Wow.
and being a woman, is that a common thing, or there's, what's the percentage of women? Because here we are talking about, we're wine women in chocolate. We like to know what women are up to and how does that roll in the ambassador world?
Right. Is that
Well, it's changed a lot. And so it used to be never ever women. And then Bill Clinton, who was the first person who appointed me, I was reappointed by George W. Bush, but Bill Clinton gave me my first opportunity. And he had at the time a notion that he was going to appoint as many women to the position of ambassador as he could. So it was that really started the change, I think, in the State Department. And President Biden is certainly continuing that. And now I think it's very clear. To some of us, it's always been clear what women can do in terms of diplomacy, but I think it is so clear now that there really is not a question. It's not like we have to go out and make a point of trying to find a woman who is going to be qualified to do it. They're already in the pipipeline.
Yes, they're in the pipeline. We need more women in the room. I know Robin has probably told you we're part of a very an organization called She Angels Foundation, and we give grants to female-founded and operated organizations that support girls and women's causes, because there's such a little amount of money that goes to that, to see that these girls are trained with confidence and knowing that they can be that is open to us in the world. Because if you're in different parts of the world, in the country, it's still very uncommon that women hold spaces in a room to be the president and to be in any position. And so it's so important.
Negotiation, I think, is really in the DNA of women. And that's at the heart of being a lawyer, a good lawyer. I think it's at the heart of being a good business person, and that's certainly at the heart of diplomacy.
And being a parent, and without our moms, they negotiated everything for us. In that way, we learned it at the playground to negotiate, and girls did it very well, and they didn't recognize it. I think culture didn't recognize it of how good we did it. They called it other things. They were bitches. They were manipulative. They were, trying to change the subject. No, we were trying to enlighten, open, and also get the point across. And
right. But I think in what you're doing with the She Foundation, the whole idea is, you are helping not only the particular women that you're helping, but you're creating role models, which just carries the message on and on and on.
And that's what we need to do.
Important part.
That's why we love sharing your story, and we want to share more stories of inspiration of women, because it doesn't mean you started here doesn't mean you're going to end up here. You don't know. You said yourself, I don't know why, I just decided. And that's because you trusted something in your gut as the gift and the grace of a woman who feels like, well, I don't know. I'm just going to trust this and I'm going to go. And that's a gift that I think a lot of women can have. Men have as well, but if you don't trust that gut, then you don't progress.
But I think it's also, as a parent, we can do so much. It's just when I think I have this story that I think about so often, and at the time it wasn't that big a deal for me, but I remember I was a kid, and so my dad was a really little kid, and my dad was a pharmacist, and he had some drugstores, and I would work in the drugstore, and if I was good at the end of the day, if I'd done my job well, he would let me take a toy home. And I remember this one day in particular, he said, okay, you did well, go pick out a toy. And I went over, and in the toy section, there were among other things, a doctor's kit and a nurse's kit. And they were the same thing, except that one was pink, and it had a picture of a woman on it, and she was the nurse.
Wow.
And one was gray, and that was the doctor, and he had all the stethoscope and stuff. And inside everything was the same. And I picked up the pink one and went to take that home. And my dad said, "That's a really great toy, but why that one?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know." And then he said, "I like that, but why don't you take this one over here?" And he picked up the doctor's kit. He said, there are wonderful things about being a nurse, but he said, why not just take the doctor's kit? He said, you might like that.
Well, you were a great kid to do that.
Those little messages that we have a chance to share.
Well, that was
your
very
dad,
enlightened.
yeah, and your dad said that.
That was enlightened of your dad to say that, because he saw and he knew, and that is that in itself is wonderful, because of course we're attracted to. I am not embarrassed that I like pretty shiny things. I always talk about my nails. I'm like, I never thought it mattered to me, and it doesn't matter. I really like it.
But you can like girly things,
Yes.
and still want the same equality, and still want to be the doctor, and want to be the lawyer, and want to be the businesswoman, and then want to go get your nails done with the sparkles, and
But it takes a parent or a guide or a mentor or something along your way because we don't know anything until someone tells us. We didn't know that pink versus gray, this gave you more opportunity than that one would give you. And the fact that, you listen, that's, that in itself will move you forward or not. So you don't choose to listen. Maybe you're not supposed to go that path, but you listen and didn't fight the path. And then look, here you are today, in ambassador, lawyer, vintner.
And let's talk
incredible.
about your vineyards, because you've really, you've grown Walt and Hall and now Baca, and so and I know that your daughter Jennifer has taken Baca and really grown with it. But you have 3 other children as well.
I do. Well, I have,
4
I have
kids.
one other biological child, and we're a blended family. So I have 4 altogether, And, I am so thrilled.
Are they all in the wine business?
Daughter.
Is it?
No, just my daughter.
Okay.
But our youngest daughter, and she's great, and she loves it, and it's such a thrill for me,
So can we come and play where you are in Napa? Because Robin and I like road trips, and I want to meet your daughter.
Yes.
But I really want to hear about your signature Cabernet Sauvignon.
Which I just happen to have too.
Yay!
This is the first vineyard we planted in Napa. Napa is the place to grow Cabernet. We don't grow anything else in Napa Valley other than, we grow a Bordeaux varietal, a Sauvignon Blanc, but it's Cabernet land, and it's best suited for Cab. So this is a particular vineyard. It's the first vineyard that we bought. It's where my home is, and it's 750 feet elevation. So, and it's westward facing, so we get a lot of sun on the vines, which I like because that helps with the ripeness of the grapes. But the soil is volcanic ash, so which means it's very porous. So all the vines on this particular vineyard are very small, and because they're so small, they have to fight. They're small because they go downward rather than upward, right? To get the water. So it's sort of like wine is so much a metaphor for life, in a way. I mean, it's like if you struggle more, you are going to, it's
persistent.
Just like
you're persistent.
There's nobody interesting on this planet who hasn't faced defeat. Nobody interesting who hasn't gone through hard times and stuff. And likewise with the wine. If a wine doesn't struggle to grow, if it doesn't have a tough time finding the water or the nutrients that it needs, it's not going to be an interesting wine. So
it smells. First of all, the nose, or however, it's. You have me at that. So
Shall we?
The nose is good.
Oh,
isn't
it's
it?
really, really good.
All right, here we go.
And we're not in the proper glass, but we are in a lovely She Angels Foundation glass.
Oh no!
But
those are great glasses.
They are, but I can slosh that right onto my shirt because it's so good.
No, but there's, what's good about those glasses? I mean, this is a red wine, so you don't mind that it warms up by holding it in the glass. And it's got this nice sort of where it curves in at the top. So you can get the nose on the glass.
Yeah.
But so the nose is on this wine it's like a lot of really dark bramble bush almost types of on the aromas. And then when you sip it, it's got it's again very deep, lush wine. But
it's so good. It has now I used to drink more Cabernet than I have been drinking. And this is a quality of Cabernet. This is a flavor. Let's just say from somebody who doesn't know all the right terms or I know it's about our individual taste. This sings to my individual taste. It tastes, for a cab, it has a jamminess to it that is that
does.
right?
It does.
That I love.
Nice job.
Yeah, because I know what I like. It's not a price point. It's a flavor profile for me, and I that's why in restaurants I'm scared to order except what I know, because I don't know how to tell them the flavor profile I like is. So.
It's very rich. I'm so bad at it. I feel like I want to say tobacco, but I don't know if that's right.
Yes,
really?
There is tobacco in it. Totally. Yes, Robin. Well done. So it's got, and by the way, can I just say something about these words? There's no tobacco in this wine. No. There's no, I think it's an earthy wine. There is no dirt in this wine.
Right.
But all of these things are just references that we have in our heads. And they give us a notion of something it's intangible that we can't get to. But I spend my life these days with sommeliers, and you can be with 10 sommeliers and every single one of them will have a different descriptor for this wine. So my point is there is no right or wrong adjective to use on this wine.
So anything we say, you'll agree with.
So,
Yay!
but what you taste and what you see.
But I totally agree on the tobacco.
It's a beautiful. Its color is beautiful. It's you don't have to go far. I certainly need a filet mignon right now. Although I like a bone-in.
Ribeye?
Yeah, I like a bone-in ribeye. Like I really.
This
like
definitely is calling for a steak right now.
Yeah. So sorry, gotta go. No.
Do we have time to taste the Zinfandel?
Yes. Well, you know what? We're
How are we on time? I can't see the
we
clock.
could
Oh, we're
extend
good.
it.
No, we can do. We have
Yes.
time for one more tasting. I think we
Great.
can go a couple minutes
I would
over.
love that because another tasting, because I'm going to be drinking. I hate to call it a tasting. I'm like, we're drinking.
This is going to be the Baca. It's a Zinfandel.
I want to know why she called it
Zinfandel.
double Dutch, first of all, because that was jump rope when I was a kid. So
Exactly. Well, this is my daughter's notion here. So she felt that we and most people take wine making and wine drinking too seriously. So she wanted to name all of the wines after a game.
Oh, really?
That's so
Yeah,
cute.
yeah.
So it is after the game double Dutch. Yeah, I fell a lot, but I still loved it. So
Zinfandel, so this comes from Paso Robles. It's a beautiful area, actually. I'm very excited about exploring more vineyards and more the potential of more production from Paso Robles. But I love the Zinfandel that comes from this area, and I'm also very attracted to the Syrahs from here, but we don't make a Syrah, at least at this point.
This is a
but anyways,
delicious
this Zinfandel, like all Zinfandels, has just a lot of, it's a little lighter weight than the Cabernet, but it carries a big punch, a lot of juiciness in it. For a long time, Zinfandel was very popular when I was a kid. It was certainly popular with me. And I think over the years, what happened to Zinfandel, it got tired and sort of old and not so interesting. And so our goal with Baca is to create a more modern approach, a little more nuanced approach to Zinfandel. So what I think you will find, what I hope you find in this Zinfandel is that the double Dutch is that it's got this sort of juiciness that you expect from a Zinfandel.
it's so good. I didn't even know I would call it a Zinfandel because, like, you're right. It's sometimes I'm like, oh, Zinfandel. I'm not sure. What is there something there that I'm not gravitating to, but this is absolutely delicious.
So it has a bit, I think partly it's spice. It has a little spiciness.
Yes.
For me, Zinfandels are great to pair with things like barbecue because they're big and they stand up, and there's this sort of juiciness is a wonderful sort of counterpoint, but it has more acidity than a Cabernet does. So it's I think it sort of it fights off some of that fat you get in with ribs and stuff.
Right.
So anyway,
It's
when
delicious.
you use
like
the
it.
term juiciness several times, and it's not fruity. This is my favorite thing to have. And in Italy, well, actually in Scotland, weirdly enough, they served all the tasting. I mean, Scotch, yes, like side by side, but also their wine all out side by side. And I was like, I had a panpipe. I took a sip, and I loved having them all out. And sometimes I'll go to a vineyard and I'll say, I hate to bother you, but can I have another glass and another, because I like going back and forth These are all very distinct and very wonderful, but I do love, look at this. Look at the profile. You can see the little bit, this is lighter.
Yeah.
This has but you're using the word juicy. And so what's your the essence of
it's sort of, again, maybe sort of an illusion of, but for me, the flavor on the Zinfandel is very much fruitier than the other two wines that we had. I get at the back of the mouth more like a sort of a dark cherry taste, a little bit. So it's maybe a blackberry, which you know, when you have a fruity taste in the mouth, it tends to be sweet, but it's not sweet.
It's not sweet.
Again, this illusion of sweetness, because
but
we
it
think of
hits
fruity.
me in the front of my mouth. I've done a glass tasting. Radil, is that how the glass company?
Oh yeah, Riedel. I love those glasses. These are Riedel. I use Riedel.
And they did a glass tasting. How wine tastes different from different glasses. I don't think I was ever more like wasted after the glass tasting. They served us like that. They served us the wine. Oh, here comes Brian.
Grip.
Hey, they served us the wine like everybody had like 4 glasses of wine, and we put them in different glasses, and then the wine tasted different because it hit the front of your mouth. Thank you so much, Brian. Wah, wah. But it tasted different when you were in the big glass for the cab and when you were in the shape of the glass. But so that's why I'm asking. This hits me in the front of the mouth. Like for me, I'm tasting it. The flavor forward is before the back of my mouth. And so what do you have there tasting? Because I love it. It's delicious, and I can't identify it.
For me, the dark cherry flavor comes out more in the back of the mouth, but there's definitely a fruitiness.
Is it the spice
At the front of the mouth too? I'll tell you a story about those glass tastings, and I heard this from both sides. I heard it from Bob Mondavi and from George Riedel. So George, or Georg, he's Austrian, had this idea of he wanted to sell the fact that the glasses would affect the taste of wine, just like you say, Kathryn. And he wanted to get Bob Mondavi on board because Bob, in the day, was the king of Napa Valley without question. Right. And so he came and he presented the wines, and he said he presented it to George, presented it to Bob, and Bob said, "You know what? I think this is a bunch of hogwash. I don't want to hear about it. I'm sorry." So Bob left the room. But Bob took his wines and he took the glasses with him. He got back to his hotel room. He tried them. The next morning, he saw George in the hotel. And he said, "George, I just want you to know that I tried my wines in your glasses. You are 100% right. It makes a difference in the glass. And I will forever use your Riedel glasses."
Wow.
It's a great story. And I've heard that from George, and I've heard it from Bob. So it's absolutely true. But
I love that.
It is true.
It is. It shocked me because, of course, I came in going like, okay, I was invited to an event, and it was a glass taste. I'm like, well, okay,
it's true.
And then I went home with bags of glasses. My husband's like, what's that? I'm like, well, get out the wines. Like you want to share that with everyone because it's a big surprise, and you don't think that could possibly be. Yeah. But Joan Ryan's husband and I both got like wasted because we were like sitting next to each other, going like, okay, try it. Really? Are you tasting at the front? It was great. And so,
well, Kathryn, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a real treat having you and your wines and the lessons and learning about you. This has really been wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheers to you.
Oh, which one?
It's been so much fun for me.
Good. Okay, I'm going to go with that.
We'll toast to you, and we'll toast to Walt and Hall and Baca and all of the delicious wines that you make, and
to your courage or inspiration as a woman. And we look forward to coming and can we come in our pajamas and just have a night with a pajama party? Because like that's what I'm about.
Yes, I will make that happen.
Okay,
I'd love it.
Okay.
Thank you both so much for inviting me. This has really been fun.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers, as we love to say.
Bye.
1016 Entertainment.